is actually a writer. She's a producer, and she actually has, I don't know how many side hustles. We can get into that as we go through the interview. And then she also is the mother. She's also a wife, and she's a mother of two boys. I don't know how old they are, but she can talk about that a little bit. So I want to thank her for joining joining me today. And actually what we're going to talk about today is, just how she got started in being an entrepreneur, and how she feels that everybody needs to have, a side hustle, and, just as the importance of work-life balance. Because obviously, when you're building a business, pretty much any entrepreneur, even just being an employee in general, you can always get your life out of whack and out of focus, So she's going to talk about some of the things that she has implemented to actually give her the work-life balance. So thank you, Kimberly Joy. The floor is yours. And actually, I'm getting ready to drop out, so you may not be able to see me, but you'll still be on. So
okay. All right. So I started as in college with a degree in drama, communication, performance. Wanted to go into acting. My dad gave me the best advice ever. He said, go work for a corporation for a couple of years and then go into your arts. Let's be a smart artist. And so I worked for a company called Ernst & Young as a management consultant for about 2.5 years. And while it was great experience, I did not enjoy being in corporate America. I've actually taken some tests, and it states that I probably should be an entrepreneur because of the way in which where I fall as far as my ability to lead and to do what I do. So I'm glad that I took a step out and started acting. And one of the things that I did the most was really working in the theater. And I did film and commercial work for a while. And then I had my child, and my oldest, who is now 13. And I realized that the theater life was not for me. That being an entrepreneur in the arts is completely different than coming out and starting your own business in some ways, but you're still marketing yourself. You're still having to go out on auditions. At that time, we didn't have social media. So it was a lot of resume drops and, agents and all of that. But I realized that the theater life wasn't really what I wanted to do full time with kids, because it didn't afford me the opportunity to really raise him. So I had kind of a nanny and an auntie that I call now, and she would come to the theater and she would feed him and do all that. And I'd see him for a few minutes, and I realized this wasn't the life that I wanted to live. So I got out, and I didn't know if I wanted to go back to corporate America, but with a child, I was like, I want to stay home. I want to have flexibility. And group fitness instructing, which gave me flexible schedule. But it really wasn't any, in a sense, money in that. And it was a lot of work. And so I decided to retool and go back to school to get certified as a health coach and a life coach. And that's really when my business took off. It was when I started having really understanding my passion and my purpose and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to help people. And it became, not in a sense easy, it's very hard. So that's kind of in a nutshell how I went from corporate America into more of a what we call entrepreneur lifestyle. Uh-oh, I can't hear you, Mike. You came back and I don't hear you.
Actually, I put myself on mute, so that's my fault. So actually, as far as your transition, what type of, issues and problems did you run into? Because obviously, it's not really easy to start a business. So in the beginning, what type of things did you implement as far as just, just finances and time? Did you have a schedule? How does that work out?
You mean as far as, I'm trying to clarification question, when I left corporate America and went into acting as an entrepreneur, or when I decided to start the business that I currently have?
When you actually left corporate America.
Okay. Yeah, that I wish I had been smarter. I was in my late 20s, or actually mid 20s, when I left corporate America. I was making close to $100,000 a year as a management consultant. My husband and I really didn't have what I would say a plan, which is stupid, but it was what it was. And that I knew that he made enough. And that's one thing I will tell people, and everybody's household is different, but we always worked where we relied on my husband's, and we still to this day, we never buy a home more than what he can afford. We never buy a car more than what his salary will afford. So what happens is if I need to come out or step out, do something more with the family, what I make is a bonus to the family. So had hindsight being 2020, I would have taken about a year and a half, because I made the decision about a year and a half into working for the company. So it was about another year before I actually left. I would have taken the time to truly, truly, truly save that entire year's salary and then go into what I was doing. But we were young and dumb. We were like, okay, we can do it. We haven't, you can just, and we didn't save the way we needed to. But that was a rude awakening. But what it does is when you're broke, you're hungry. So I wasn't broke in the sense of we weren't worried about where our food was coming from. We weren't worried about any of those things. But what we were concerned about was, like my extra spending change, the things like that I had to, that I wanted to use. So for me, I started really hustling as an actor. So I was like, I can't rely on, a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks. So when you're broke, you're hungry, you go and you do some of the things that maybe you wouldn't do if you were comfortable. So I, got agents. I had in Arizona, you're allowed to have more than one agent. So I had a couple agents. I was doing independent films, and then we moved to Minneapolis, which was like pay dirt for an actor because it's number 2 behind New York. So that's when I started going out on multiple auditions, getting multiple agents again, doing commercial work, and so it made me hungry to do what I wanted to do. So that was the initial transition. And then as I started realizing, and I was people were now calling me, I was getting work, I was requested, it became easier. So that was kind of my transition. So I say, if anyone can, save and do what you need to do. But if you don't, understand that being broke makes you hungry and you go after what you want.
Yeah, that's true. I know a lot of people actually talk about, as far as just putting themselves in uncomfortable situations. Because obviously, sometimes people don't want to leave their job because it's good. They get the paycheck every week. They have, health insurance benefits and
Exactly.
all that. And, sometimes you need to put yourself, in an uncomfortable situation where, you actually have to, perform. But, obviously, yeah, you still have bills. And especially if you have other responsibilities like, a family and kids.
Correct.
And stuff. So you really just can't drop it and quit. But actually, I want to touch on something else as well, where you actually said you took tests. So what type of test did you take that actually indicated that you should be an entrepreneur?
What was the test called? There was one. It's not the Myers-Briggs. It's not.
Oh,
And I'm sitting here. I'm trying to remember and what I can do if it doesn't come to my brain right now. There was one that the Harrison report. That's what it's called. That's the Harrison report. And so, I mean, literally most CEOs and entrepreneurs score about 89% in a particular category on this Harrison evaluation. I was 98%. So the coach who took that, she was just like, you don't ever need to work for anybody else. She was just like, I don't. You're frozen. Okay. So yeah.
yeah. So actually, it froze up a little bit. Actually, so basically, do you think that, I guess, just a regular employee or just a regular person actually needs to take a test to be an entrepreneur? Do you think that entrepreneurship is in everybody or anybody? Do you think anybody can be an entrepreneur?
I think that everyone has a passion and a place in which they thrive, and that they can push themselves, and they have skills that they can give. But I honestly, I don't know if an entrepreneur life is for every person, but I do believe that everyone has something that they're supposed to give and do. It is a very difficult life. People think, oh, you got your own schedule, you can, you're your own boss, you do this. But you have to be very, 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 very disciplined. You also have to be a visionary, and you have to know how to execute. And that can be frustrating. Some people don't actually have that skill set, and that's okay, because a cheetah isn't a fish and a fish isn't a cheetah, and that. So
So, what would you recommend for somebody that actually wanted to get started? I mean, just having a side hustle. Let's say they're not really, fully wanting to become an entrepreneur, but they kind of want to have, something on the side. Like instead of going to get a part-time job, because I know a lot of people. You think, they have their, their full-time job, and then they want to make extra money, and they get a part-time job. So,
Hmm.
I mean, first off, what is a side hustle, and how can somebody start one if they're still an employee?
Okay, well there are lots of different ways. If you are a person who really like is great at photography, right? You don't have to make that your full-time job. In fact, sometimes I tell people it's more intriguing when something is your part-time thing because you enjoy it more and you're not putting all your eggs in that particular basket. So, photography is your thing. Start saying, "Hey, on the weekends and at night, maybe doing, one client or one person a night and maybe book 3 people on a weekend." That's a side hustle, right? Or if you are, someone who enjoys making something and selling it, you can do that as well. And you can look at vending events and if you're a baker or you're a jewelry maker or whatever, those are the things that you can see as far as arts. Or even if you're an actress and you're like, I don't want to quit my full-time job, but I want to do some, commercial work. So you have to make sure you have a flexible job that will allow you to go to auditions or things like that. The other thing is that sometimes people don't they have a bad taste in their mouth when they hear like multi-level marketing. But I will tell people that if you find the right business that you really love a product, then that is a way to start a business and see if it's for like see if actually business is for you, because you have to implement all the skills in whatever that area is to see. And if you're good at it and you're able to, talk to people and show them the value of that product, it, makes a difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let me apologize to you guys if you hear noise in the background. I'm actually outside and I am close to actually an ice skating rink. So I think they actually have the ice machine actually where they smooth the ice and all that stuff. So I think they just turned that on, which I don't know why because there's nobody over there on the park. So I thought I picked a nice quiet location, and Kimberly told me she had actually she can hear wind and stuff in the background too. So just excuse me for the noise real quick. And but actually, let's also talk about. I know that you mentioned you said you would do things differently. So if when you first got started, so if you were to do things differently, I know you touched on a little bit as far as you talked about saving. You would have saved a little more money and everything like that. So I mean, I guess just if you were to go back and start over, what type of things would you implement? Would you start a different business? What would you do if you had to start all over?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is just in learning. And the when I started doing things, we didn't have the internet like people do now. I think starting a business now is the easiest time because there are people teaching courses on anything and everything that you want to do. If you want to be a speaker, you have courses on how to, become a speaker and book jobs. If you want to be a writer, there are courses on that. If you want like whatever you want to do, you can find it. But at that time, there really wasn't. It was like you really had to either have a full-time mentor. And I think that's one of the things that I would have looked for is someone who, but I have to say, I really do give myself credit. I always did have mentors in different areas of my life, but I never had like a business mentor or someone who was going where I wanted to go because we didn't have the visibility like we do now, where you see someone on social media or like that, where you understand what people are doing with their lives because we didn't live like that, right? Like I'm talking about 1999, 2000, 2005. This wasn't a thing that we're doing like we are right now. And so I don't really know if there's anything else that I could have done besides save money and have more of a cushion to be able to do that and to maybe find some more resources. And the other thing I would say I would have done more is read more in the area that I wanted to go into business wise. But at the time as an artist, I was reading, I was I was investing in classes for my art and for my craft, but it wasn't necessarily in a business sense. So that came later in life, and investing in things like B School and other courses that helped me to grow along the way in what I'm doing now currently.
And then I know a lot of you guys may be thinking, she said, get a mentor. And there's like, well, some people may be thinking, well, I don't have enough money for a mentor to go out and look for a mentor. But the thing is, some people will actually do it for free. You can kind of, bargain with them, or, you can say, well, I'll help you do this if, you show me exactly. Because there was actually a story that I read. It might have been Robert Kiyosaki in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where he actually talked about where he actually went in and he helped, I guess it was his neighbors, I think it was his neighbors or his best friend's dad. And his dad was, owned a business. So he kind of just hung around him. And just by hanging around him, he learned, different aspects about entrepreneurship and, running a business, being a business owner, the ins and outs and everything like that. But still, there's also, if you really still can't find anybody on that aspect, you can also, just like Kimberly said, read books, because books can be your mentor as well. As far as just, different authors and, whatever your particular task is. Like she was saying, she wished she could go back and, or if she did go back, she would actually, read things more specifically on the specific topic or, the task that she or the niche that she was in. So that is another thing that you guys can do as well. So actually, let's talk about you being, because you wrote your own, was it play or film, or how did that work?
Did. Yeah, it was a one-woman show.
Produced it, and you were an actress in it. So what exactly was that like? Was that like, because when I think of that, I think of something like, Tyler Perry,
Yeah.
and everything like that. So
that's kind of, it was my senior honors thesis in college. And then as time progressed, I wanted to enhance the play. And I got a grant, and this was when I was living in Minneapolis, and got a grant to go to New York and do more research. And I kind of expanded the characters, changed some characters, added characters. And then I shot the play in a couple of theaters in Minneapolis, and one of them, called the Pillsbury House Theater, picked it up. And they said that they would co-produce it with me. And that was, pretty exciting. And it was a one-woman show. I played over 13 different characters and was directed by Dr. Tanya Pettiford-Waits, who she's a Broadway actress and director, and she's amazing. Came in and did that. And that show actually won what we call the Ameriprize Ivy Award, which is the Tonys of Minneapolis. So that city has its own award ceremony and the Ivy Award. So I was actually the first recipient of the Ivy Award when it started out in 2004.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So as far as your, and you also wrote a book. Do you want to explain, what your book is about, how that came about and everything?
Sure. Yeah, so I wrote a book called Share the Joy, 52 Weeks to Abundant Health. That book actually came out of tragedy in May 3rd of 2018. My 53-year-old cousin died suddenly at the gas station from complications from the medication he was taking for gout. And as a health coach and someone who knows that lifestyle, gout is a lifestyle disease. You pretty much eat your way into it, unfortunately. And as someone who wanted to help people understand how to change their health. A lot of times we get into situations and the doctor says, oh, well, your cholesterol's high or your blood pressure's high or something's going on. You don't know what to do and how to change your lifestyle. Like it's very difficult to say, I've had 35 years of these habits or 45 years of these habits, and now you want me to change them, but you're not giving me a roadmap to do that. So I wrote Share the Joy, 52 Weeks to Abundant Health, to give people a week-by-week roadmap to make those changes. And so it's kind of synthesized information, but it's very detailed, impactful. I mean, every chapter could be a book in and of itself, but I wanted to give it so that people were able to chew on it and really implement those things into their lives. And if you really do one thing at a time and keep building on each practice, you will change your health in a year, for sure.
And that's something that I also want to touch on, because I was hearing my wife, she does a lot of stuff with, health coaching and health and everything. So that's something that is, well, even to me, because I do not like taking, medications from the doctor. I mean, I'm not telling you guys to do that. I mean, obviously, everybody's personal life is, different. But obviously, she made a key point as far as, changing your lifestyle and how you eat and all that stuff. And I think the medical realm and the medical world is actually, medical doctors are really not, I guess, debriefed on what to tell patients and everything like that. So you really do have to do your own research. So it'll be interesting to actually just get and, look and just see what Joy is actually talking about in her book. That way you can obviously begin to implement some of those things in your life as well. And I guess just as far, I mean, how do you do all this stuff? As far as you're a mom, you're a writer, you're a producer, you wrote a book, you wrote a play, producer. I mean, how do you just manage your time? I mean, do you have a schedule that you go by every day? I know we touched a little bit on that, but as far as I mean, what type of things do you do to make sure that just you spend time with your family, you also have time for not just one business but different areas, a different business, and then your friends and stuff as well. So
Yeah. Well, I think it's about priorities. And for me, my family is my priority. I mean, God first for me is number one. Like that's just so I make sure when I wake up in the morning that even if it's just a verse or a chapter or something that I'm reading, that I'm centering and saying, okay, Lord, I want to understand what you have to say. Sometimes it's more in-depth study, sometimes it's quick. But that grounding in the morning is really what starts my day off. And then I prioritize, my kids, getting them off to school. Then it's working out. So people don't realize, like, I really don't start my business workday usually until somewhere around 10 o'clock. Now, I do work later in the day, but I don't start usually I focus on what needs to happen first with my family and myself so that I'm good for everyone else. And then I schedule clients and I have that going on. And, I do work with a planner. I use electronics to like make quick notes, but I use old fashioned pen and paper I have a really great planner that I use. I've used many different kinds and I found one that I absolutely love. And so that helps me to visualize. I do a lot of like off in the way distance, 20 years, what do I want to see for my life? Because I'm trying to make decisions today that will impact what I want to see in 20 years. So, there was a time when I was working out really hard and I realized I was hurting my joints. And I was like, I want to be able to walk around this lake when I'm 90. I don't need to do this. I don't need to change what I'm doing. And so I make decisions today to hopefully affect tomorrow. And so work-life balance for me is important, to have times that you shut things off. When my kids come in from school, I don't care what's going on. I shut down the work. I help them with their homework. I get them, and then I'll pick back up in the evening. So it really is about, for me, prioritizing those individuals and friends and things more than stuff, because that stuff is going to happen and it's going to occur. But I know I've listened enough to older people and sat under their wisdom to hear that they never say, oh, I wish I had worked longer. I wish I had worked harder. They're usually, I wish I had spent more time with these people. And so I've really tried to take that to heart and to do just that, and spending more time, if I can, quality with individuals. Because I am a person who tends to be a workaholic, and I can dig in really deep and kind of get tunnel vision on things. And so I have to pull myself out and say, no, these individuals, because I know this may sound cocky, but I can make $1 million tomorrow. Meaning if I wanted to, I could shut everything down and I could do what I had to do to make that happen. But I only have 7 more years with my boys living in my house. So I have to say that if they leave in 7 years and then I take, 2 years to build, amass, wealth and this and that and the other, great, because now I have the time to do it. But if I do it now, or do something that sacrifices my time with them now, I can't get that back, and they may not like me in 7 years because I ignored them. So I put that at the forefront of my mind all the time. And so, I believe God allows me to build the business that I have at the speed that I have, that I enjoy, and to be successful at it and to do those things. But it is still by spending time with them.
Yeah, that's a good point. So pretty much you set up non-negotiables and you have priorities where you automatically make sure that whatever your top priorities, your high priorities, you make sure those things get done first, which
Yes.
is obviously a good way to live, and obviously a good way to just make sure that the things that actually need to get done get done. Because sometimes especially being an entrepreneur, we have so much, I guess, well, I won't say free time, but I mean we do have a lot more time where we can manage our schedule. So if you don't manage your schedule and your time appropriately, then you'll end up, misusing it and
Yes.
abusing it. So, and that's one thing that she touched on as well is, as far as, you can always make money. I mean, even if you can make money, you can lose money. And just the fact that, you can get money back. But the thing is, you cannot get time back. So
Nope.
time is our most valuable asset. So
Mm-hmm.
that's make sure that you guys are managing your time. Make sure that there are certain things that need to get done. Make sure you do those first in the day.
Yes, that
And
is right.
I know Kimberly actually wanted to give out a free something. I don't want to give. I'll let her tell you what exactly she's going to give away. But you can go ahead and talk about that if you go ahead and talk about that now.
Sure. So one of the things that I do is as a health coach, I like people to understand priorities. This is a great segue into what I'm giving away. If you go to the link, I'm not sure where that's going to be for you, but the link that's in the comment section or wherever you're going to have that, Mike.
Yeah, I'm
If
actually putting it in there now. So
Okay, so there's a link that's going to go in there, and it's going to take you to a page on my website about Let's Get Started. You're going to get a PDF that is what I call a circle of importance, and then you're going to get a link to a video to watch how to fill this circle of importance out. And this is very important because it's going to show you where you're spending your time, like where you think your emphasis is or what's important to you. You're going to fill in first between 4 different categories of spirituality, so religion, whatever you consider. For me, it's Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit. That's my center. But for whomever is watching this, it's your center, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be, because that may not be the most important thing to you. But if it is, that would go in the center of the circle. And then the other 3 areas would be relationships, career, and physical activity. Now, physical activity doesn't have to just be working out. It could be painting, it could be poetry, it could be bowling, it could be whatever, gardening. It's things that you do with yourself, kind of hobbies and physical activity. And those things get written in as to who's important. You can either put names or categories, groups, whatever it is. Then when you do that, you're going to place certain times around how much you spend. And that, when I explain it in the video, you'll understand more. It's going to help you to actually see where you're off balance. And then we call that primary food, those 4 areas. What am I eating? And when you're off balance or you're in disharmony, what happens is you find yourself eating a lot of secondary food or using things like drugs and alcohol and other things to cope because your primary food isn't feeding you the most. And so if I have a thing where I say, if I say I love God, but I have 0 time, I'm not doing anything that's related to my spirituality, or if I say I love my husband and we spend 0 time together, then that's a disconnect in my primary food. And so that's where you start understanding what that is. So this little exercise, which you'll get this free gift, is a video course on that. And the next thing that for those individuals that sign up between today and next Friday, Black Friday, by the end of Black Friday, I will take all of those names in a drawing, and you'll get my book that's signed copy along with a 30-minute one-on-one session, coaching, health coaching, life coaching session with me.
that's awesome. So you guys need to click on the link and do it. I'll go ahead and opt in and get all of the freebies that she is giving away. I mean, and even if you don't win the prize, because obviously there's only going to be one person that actually wins, still you get valuable information that can actually change your life. I mean, if you looked at the comments in the post, or actually the post itself, what I actually put in the comments and everything, as far as just the fact that her book actually saved somebody's life. So obviously you are actually getting valuable information from an expert in the field. So actually I know you got to jump off real quick. So but I want to ask you one more question. I always ask my guests this: if you were to have one superpower, what would it be and why?
That's a good question to put me on the spot. Okay. Superpower. I think I would love to read people's minds. And I think that the reason why is because it would help me to relate to them better. I really love relational connection with people. And for me to be able, not in the sense of like, if they're saying something bad, so, because I'm the kind of person that lets things roll. I'm like, not everyone's going to be my fan, but to be able to really understand what's at the heart and where somebody really is as opposed to what they're saying, I think that would be a cool superpower, to be able to help them on a deeper level.
That's good. So thank you for joining me, and you guys go check out Kimberly. The link is actually in the comments below. Click on it, opt in, and just get the valuable information that she is giving away. Like I said, she is an expert in the field. She is a writer. She is a producer, and even if you want to, just get some tips on being a parent. She is that as well. So thank you, Kimberly, for joining me, and we will see you guys on the next one. And as always, an object at rest stays at rest. Just as we talked about, just constantly be moving. Like you heard Kimberly say from the beginning of the interview, she was actually talking about how she just got started and how, she kept progressing. I mean, the first thing she did really wasn't, in corporate America. And then, she went on to, got into the arts, and then she obviously, wrote a book, did a play and everything like that. So, just constantly be moving. I mean, you can't just always stay stagnant at your job. You can't be an employee forever. And then even if you are an entrepreneur, you still need to progress and move up. So an object at rest stays at rest. So always be moving. So thanks again, Kimberly. Thank you for joining me. And
Thank you.
you have a wonderful rest of the day, and you guys too as well. Take
All right.
care. Have a good one.
Thanks. Blessings.